Ghetto Fix Productions presents. This video is going to show you how to replace these broken adjusters that show up in headlight assemblies. What happens is that these old parts get really brittle with age. There's some of the tools you're going to need. That's the top view of a headlight assembly. Start off by taking the cover off from the lens frame. There's, I think, 7 snaps that hold the lens cover and the back cover together. And you want to be careful how you flex these snaps. You just want to flex them enough to free up the point at which their snap is at. If you go too far with it, you'll break them. If you break too many of them, you won't have enough snaps to keep the assembly together. I didn't find the plastic used for these covers and housing and all to be brittle, that it was in pretty good shape. You can hear the broken plastic kind of rattling around inside the light assembly as it gets rolled over. The nice thing about plastic snap assemblies, they always give you a kind of a pop when you break them open and also when you snap them back together. They usually give a good pop sound. The snap here on the end is probably the toughest one to deal with, just because you don't have direct access to it. Key thing about these plastic assemblies, you don't want to try to force them. If you force them, you'll end up breaking them. There's some of the broken adjusters coming out of it. It's white plastic. You'll see through the video, get a pretty good pile of broken parts from the broken adjusters. The plastic used for those adjusters was very brittle. That's the pivot point, and up above that is the up and down adjuster there. And then that one over there is the adjuster for moving your light left or right. Both of these assemblies, took most of the time in working with these assemblies was just getting the broken plastic out of them. Found a small pick and came in real handy to get into some of these small places to get out the small pieces that had gotten down in there. You got to get all that stuff out before you put on the new adjusters, because if you leave them in there, it's going to affect how much adjustment you're going to have. On the back of the reflector, there's this bar piece that it's just easier to take it off so you can work with it. It's got the up and down adjuster ball at one end, and then at the other end it just engages with that swivel piece. and it's just easier to take it off of the reflector assemblies. You want to be careful working with these reflector assemblies, just because they're probably the most expensive part in these assemblies. You don't want to get too many fingerprints on the reflective surface. You don't want to screw anything in there too hard to strip any threads that you might have. Sometimes they can be tool challenged. So you can see it went in there, the white broken ball piece that we now have to remove that. And this is where you want to use a knife and a small hammer. You know, again, you don't want to over muscle this plastic stuff. Keep in mind that an entire E39 assembly for a headlamp costs about $500. So I kept that in mind the whole time, and so therefore I only broke a couple of little parts. But I don't have $500 to spend on an entire assembly, so yeah, I went to the trouble of doing what you see here. You can see off to the right the pile of broken plastic is getting bigger. The both adjusters have ball features on the end, and they snap into these little cups that are like 4 fingers, and it's just they snap into the cup, and then it rotates nicely. And you want to be really careful that you don't break off any of those fingers, because if you break off the finger, then it won't retain the ball. And I don't know if you can get those bars online. Ping. Having some pieces of wood or other blocks handy to support these pieces while you're doing this work is useful. You know, you don't want to put it in a vise or something that's going to grab it, because chances of breaking are pretty good. So you want to try to stabilize the part, and without putting a whole lot of force on it. So I'm just popping out that brittle broken plastic out of that cup piece. Be very careful just to grab onto the broken part and not do any damage to the cup. For some reason, it was only the plastic on these adjusters that was really brittle like this. I didn't run into brittle conditions in any of the other plastic parts. Now these adjusters just have a hole in them. There's no threads in, and you're going to form the threads as you turn the adjustment screw. So you want a T-handle to do that that's in line with the adjuster part. You do not want to go use the right angle hex, because you'll probably end up breaking that little gear drive that's at right angles. You want to go use either your hand on the knob that's in line with the adjuster, or there's a hex recess on it that you can put a 6mm wrench in there. And you want to go, don't hurry through this part. You want to just take your time and make sure you get good alignment on these parts before you start just cranking away. Okay, notice how the reflector, how you tilt it up, and you tilt it up so you can engage that kind of square white piece, which is the bottom pivot. And then once you've got that engaged, you can rotate it down. Yeah. Notice I was looking to grab a tool, but then I decided, no, I'm not going to use tools. I'm just going to use my hands on this. But I'm going to stabilize it with some blocks. Having the piece stable is really important in this. You don't want it flying around, maybe slipping off the bench or the table. Pop. And you want to look in there and make sure that the ball is positioned to go right into the cup, that it's not off center or anything. Now again, there's like 7 or so snaps involved with this. There's a couple of engagement pieces. It all fits together fairly well. Just go nice and slow. Look at it all the way around. Don't try to force it at any point. Make sure you're engaged in all the places you need to be engaged with before you try snapping any of the snaps together. Just don't forget that $500 figure. Probably should have done this assembly with George Thorogood in the background. Now I just went around the part, hitting the snaps as I went. I don't go from one side to the other, back and forth. Like the last one is going to be the one towards my left hand there, which is toughest one to get because it's probably the last one, and it's also you don't have a whole lot of access to it.